Welcome to the Inforonics SupportCast, bringing you insight and tips from the world of customer, technical, and infrastructure support. Inforonics SupportCast starts now.
Welcome back to Inforonics SupportCast Weekly. I'm Matt Hooper.
And I'm Jeff Roberts.
Thanks for joining me again, Jeff.
Thanks for having me again, Matt.
You know, last week I was flying solo. Everybody was so busy. We had clients in here and some projects going on. I couldn't get anybody.
I saw you. There's a great whiteboard behind you last week.
Thanks. Yeah, the DIKW stack. People appreciated how we take data, turn into information, knowledge, and wisdom. It's a kind of a neat concept, but the reality is that we collect a lot of data.
We collect a lot of data, and we use most of it, and hopefully we only collect what we actually need and not a bunch of stuff just for the sake of data. So.
Yeah. Well, it fits well into what we're going to talk about today. We talked a couple weeks ago about dynamic SLAs. And there was a good discussion, but people wanted more. They wanted us to get more pragmatic and more real, and I think that's great. It's great to hear feedback from folks and to see what's working, what's not. So today I thought we could really get into some of the meat behind how we create our SLAs, how we report on our SLAs. Interestingly enough, it reminded me back when I started in the IT profession. I started in tech support. I actually supported DOS 6.2 and Windows for Workgroups for the company that I was working. We had a support contract with Microsoft. And I remember very specifically that there was a term kind of came to us. We called it clearing the queue. And what this meant, when people would say, clear the queue, everybody picked up the phone, and then they canceled the call. And they picked up the next call, and they canceled that call. And what this did is this reduced our average time to answer. Yeah. And it reduced our average time on the calls. Yeah. And we had contracts with Microsoft, and I'm sure I'm breaching something here, but we had contracts with Microsoft where we had to be within these averages. And it was a great job meeting the SLA, an absolutely ridiculous and horrific customer experience where people had been waiting and they go to speak to someone and they get dropped. Yeah. And so, you know, we're not suggesting in any way that this kind of still happens, but the reality is if you only look at the numbers, it can be a very difficult thing to know how does that relate to the customer experience. And when we introduced this term dynamic SLAs, people noticed that we're changing things. We're always looking at variables, and so we want to talk a little bit about how do we do that. Yep. And you know, first of all, we record every call.
We record every call, and we record every little data point that we can find or that we think is important about every call. So you're right, literally recording the voice interaction between us and the caller, and then everything we can about the call.
Yeah, so we're time stamping it.
Right
when they come into our switch.
Right.
Right when we pick them up.
Right.
How long they're on the phone with that person. How long they're on hold, or if they're transferred.
Right.
Like you said, we're voice recording that call. We can do quality look-backs.
Right.
We can go back and hear and listen to them. So obviously systems have a big play with that, especially on the tech support side of our business. And then we also have metrics around the managed services side of the business. There are big differences between those SLAs?
Well, yeah, much different because you're looking for different things, and the data is coming from different systems, and we're storing it in different places and reporting it in different places. So yeah, there's a big difference. I think the discussion of SLA starts at even in pre-sales when you set the right expectations. If you set the right expectations, then you don't really have to game the system when by playing around with your phone calls. But I mean, we're a tech support center that does customer support too. We do tier 0, tier 1, tier 2. We've done tier 3 in the past on the tech support side of the house. Generally, there's a big difference between customer support work, especially in average handle time and the skill level required, and the actual technical support where we're actually troubleshooting and solving technical problems. Average handle times in the customer support world can be 2 or 3 minutes. On the tech support side of the house, average handle times can be 10 to 12 minutes up to a couple of hours, depending on how big the problem is we're trying to solve.
Complicated product.
And how many interactions back and forth, how many touches we call in between us and the client. So the client calls in and says, I have a problem, we say, great, we can help you solve that. Can you go get me a,
config or something
config
like
file
that,
or something
yep.
and attach it and send it back, and then the ticket stays open pending customer response, and then we wait for that to come in. That comes in, hits the board, tells us there's a new action for us in the ticket system. We go in, we retrieve it, we write back, thanks very much, this tells us this, now can you go look at this and send us this information? So you could have a lot of touches back and forth. So, and that's one of the metrics we track is the number of touches per ticket, per event.
Right.
Gives you an idea of the complexity and gives you an idea of where you're spending your money.
Sure. And from in a customer experience standpoint, again, that helps us with clarity around how the customer is perceiving that service being delivered. If there's interaction and there's responsiveness,
Yep.
they're usually okay with it taking a couple hours, as long as they feel like when they come back to us that we immediately come back with next steps or some direction. We don't let them left in the lurch, but we're constantly guiding them down the solution path.
Right. Especially when, because it's up to us to watch our clients' money too. You don't keep a client around for as many years as we keep our clients by artificially stretching out the calls so that you can bill them for every minute.
Right.
What you want to do is keep track of the average handle time and the touches per ticket and the actual cost of that ticket per client, and you want to see that trend line going down as we get better and as our systems get better or we automate things. We want that to go down. We want that customer to be happy to pay the bill every month and recognize the value of it.
So let's get real. Help our audience understand, what are our SLAs around calls?
Well,
what are some of the things that we look for?
Okay, so we are primarily a tech support center, so our average handle times are higher generally than customer support, although we do a great deal of customer support and we're very good at it, what we call catch and throw, which is just gathering a couple of data points, updating a ticket, moving the ticket into the client's queue for their action, and then moving on to the next call. So we manage the entire tech support center as one giant Erlang C equation because it helps us to staff better across all clients to what we call a service factor of 80-120. A service factor is expressed as a percentage of calls answered by live agents in a certain amount of time as across a reporting period. So 80-120 means that we guarantee that a live agent will answer 80% of the calls that come in within 2 minutes.
Okay.
And we report that monthly. And then that stops. Next month you start over again. You're reporting in monthly periods. That is a great, affordable service level for most places. With high average handle times, if you wanted to try to hit like the Canadian standard of 80-20 for their telecom industry, you'd have to have a lot of bodies in the seats to make sure that there was someone available to answer the call while your tech support agents are on 12, 15, 90-minute tech support calls. So
Right.
That's very expensive service level to maintain with a larger average handle time. Most of our clients don't want to be spending that kind of money per minute for their support. So we offer a very reasonable service factor for a very reasonable cost.
And can a customer, if they had a certain requirement, could they get a higher SLA?
Well, they could, but there are two things would have to happen. We either have to manage our entire group to that new SLA because we'd have to meet that all the time on every call, or you'd have to have enough volume for us to have a dedicated smaller group that we could staff, 12 or 14 agents essentially all the time that we could staff to a different service factor.
Right.
And we would manage them separately, individually from the rest of the group. That's expensive too, but if someone has those kind of volumes and appreciates the quality of our work, we can handle that.
Sure. So there's some flexibility there, but it obviously comes at a price.
Yeah. And then there's some standard quality service levels that we promise people. We promise people that our agents will have a certain amount of soft skill training, customer service training, how to take control of a call, how to handle difficult customers, how to use paraphrasing and empathy and different soft skills in order to keep control of the call and make the call a pleasant and quality interaction even when there's a problem or the caller is frustrated by something. And we teach people that, and we measure them on them, and we retrain and we remeasure and we retrain, and we promise a certain level of quality of those agents. And we do that across the board, same level of quality for each of our customers.
And our quality ties back to SLAs in some form or fashion. How do we measure? How do we measure quality?
Well, we measure our shift leads will listen to our recorded calls, a certain number of calls per agent per month per client, and they score those calls against a set of quality criteria that we've established as the levels that we want to meet. So, and we calibrate those shift leads at regular calibration meetings to help bring that subjective measurement into a more objective across the board level set with those shift leads, so that they're all scoring those interactions about the same way. And when we find people that are falling below the standards we've set, we retrain them, we coach them, and then we remeasure them. We measure them a little more closely for a little while until they get up again. People that exceed certain criteria have incentives. They get rewarded for it.
Great.
That keeps the quality across the whole group at the high level that we want it to be at.
Now, reporting must be a challenge because we have our own ticketing system for some of our customers who don't have a platform. But one of the nice things, and we've talked about this before on the SupportCast, is we will use our clients' ticketing system if they already have one in place, especially if we're augmenting levels of support and service.
Right.
So how do you handle that, where you're reporting across these different systems?
And we do. We about half of our customers use our internal ticket system. The other half use their own. So we're supporting probably over a dozen different enterprise ticket systems or CRM systems that they use for trouble ticketing. The expectation we set at the beginning is that in addition to our standard service factor, phone response, email response, agent quality, service levels, we allow people to pick within the first 90 days of engagement 3, or if they need more than that, but generally we say up to 3 individual key performance indicators just for that client to support whatever their critical business factors are. So we could be tracking incidents closed on first contact, meaning we never the call comes in, we solve the issue, we close out the ticket, and it's all done on one interaction, one phone call, one email, one chat, whatever it is. We could be measuring issues resolved in one business day. We could be measuring issues resolved at level 1 versus level 2. We could be measuring how many things we're escalating back up to the client. If they want us to be solving 40% of their issues and we need to get there in the first 90 days, then we want to measure that and make sure that we're trending up every month until we get there. And then what happens is that if the information that we need to use for reporting and measuring is stored in our systems, we report on it, we generate the reports, and we deliver them to the client. If that information is stored in our clients' ticket systems and in their databases, we ask them to keep control of creating the reports and whatever engineering needs to be done to get the reports out of their system, and then share them with us. And then either monthly or quarterly, depending on what's in the deal, we get together with the client as a group and we go over all those numbers and we make sure that we're all still trending the right way and that we're not identifying any problem areas that we're not addressing on a regular basis. And it seems to work out pretty well so far. I mean,
well, it highlights the value of an outsourcing relationship, right? Because we have many different customers that have different varying needs. But what we get the ability to do is look across all those customers and find those common key performance indicators and critical success factors and service factors that we can measure against, that now we're really bringing back best practices and disciplines to our customers. They may never have thought of measuring or managing their support calls in this way, but because another client helped us to educate us, or we educated them and we came to a solution, we now bring that benefit across the client base, right? So
we do, and sometimes we even take credit for it.
Yeah.
We pretend it was our idea when we in fact got it from another client. But, and those are hard numbers to get out of the ticket system. We also have clients where we launch small customer satisfaction surveys at the end of every ticket transaction. Right. So when we close the ticket, we try to get the opt-in. We ask the customer if it's all right if they take this little survey. It's usually 5 or 6 questions. We send them an email with a link in it. They go to a web-based survey form. They click in the little radio buttons and submit that back to our database. And we keep track of our clients' customers' customer satisfaction with our agents and with our clients' products, and then we generate reports for that monthly.
How are we doing?